Number 10. The Machete Killer. Carla Jacqueline Morales was 20 years old when she was charged with murder in 2018. According to the police, Carla was associated with the dangerous MS-13 gang. She didn't technically commit murder herself, but she did lure a man into the darkness where a group of gang members were waiting for him. Then they chopped him up with machetes. It was an absolutely horrendous crime, one that Carla still hasn't been brought to justice for. For some crazy reason, she was allowed to wander the streets after she participated in the execution, with nothing but a GPS ankle monitor to keep track of her. She managed to pay a $60,000 bond to get herself out of prison while awaiting trial. Well, she cut her GPS ankle monitor off just days before the trial was supposed to start. This was in early February of 2022, and last we heard she's still on the run somewhere in Texas. At first, the authorities in Harris County were hoping to capture Carla themselves. But it's taken so long, they've reached out to the public. They're now hoping someone can reveal her whereabouts. We know she has strong ties to gangs and that she was involved in the killing with 5 other members. We also know she goes by all kinds of nicknames, such as Cherry, Missy, and Foxy. Number 9. Trigger-happy bounty hunter. Elmer Leah was a 24-year-old Texan wanted for jumping bail in regard to a domestic assault case. His original arrest came after he beat up his fiancée and then tried to flee from the police with her and their 3-month-old child inside a car. He was arrested and released on bail on a $35,000 bond. Then he decided he didn't want to go to court. And so a bounty hunter whose name has not been released began the hunt. In October of 2021, he tracked Elmer to an apartment complex in Park Falls, Houston. The fugitive managed to get in his vehicle, but the bounty hunter blocked his pickup before he could get out the front gates of the development. And this was where everything spiraled out of control. The bounty hunter approached the pickup truck with his gun drawn. In response, Elmer hit the gas and tried to run over the bounty hunter. Allegedly scared for his life, he opened fire and started blasting through the windows. Bullets struck the fugitive, and he was dead on the spot. In the aftermath, the bounty hunter didn't get in any trouble for committing murder. The investigation is ongoing, but there do not appear to be any criminal charges being brought up against the man, who says he shot Elmer in self-defense. Number 8. The WAUKESHA parade tragedy. Darrell E. Brooks was out on bail when in November of 2022, he drove his SUV into a Wisconsin parade, injuring over 60 people and killing 6. The criminal and multi-murderer was a registered sex offender at the time in Nevada and had an active warrant for his arrest. And yet, despite an active warrant, he had been released from prison on bond after yet a different violent incident involving a vehicle. The previous one had him running over the mother of his own child. To put this as simply as possible, Darrell should absolutely not have been released for any amount of money. He was a dangerous man who ran over his baby mama at a gas station parking lot, then plowed his SUV into a crowded parade. After he was arrested and charged with 5 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, the judge gave him the option of posting bail yet again. The only difference is that this time, the bail was set at $5 million. Back at the beginning of November, when he first ran over his child's mother, his bail was only set at $1,000. Number 7. The bail scammer. Jean is a 71-year-old grandmother from Long Island who became the victim of a weird bail scam in 2022. Jean is not your typical senior citizen, though, and is actually a retired 911 operator. When she received a strange phone call from a man saying that he was her grandson and that he was in desperate need of bail money, she knew there was something fishy going on. Not only because all of her grandchildren are in middle school, but because she also got calls for 2 other men. One pretended to be the lawyer, and the other pretended to be the bail bondsman. Partly out of boredom and partly out of spite, she decided to play along and lure the scammers into a trap. And luckily for all of us at home, she filmed the whole thing on her doorbell camera. First, she agreed to hand over the $8,000 in cash the scammers were asking for in bail money. Secondly, she contacted the Nassau County Police Department. They agreed to help with the sting operation, especially seeing as Jean's status as an ex-911 operator. When a criminal came to pick up the cash on her doorstep, thinking he had easily duped an old lady, he was met by a police officer and arrested. The scammer was identified as Joshua Gomez and has since been charged with attempted grand larceny. It's a small victory, but one that must certainly feel good to everyone out there who's ever been the victim of a scam. Number 6. Woman on fire. A Detroit man by the name of Devon Marsh set his pregnant girlfriend on fire in the beginning of 2022. Devon poured gasoline over his 6-month pregnant girlfriend, lit her on fire, and then watched as the flames consumed her. By the time the fire was finally put out, she had suffered burns over 60% of her body. She was hospitalized in critical condition. It was also unclear if the babies inside her, as it turned out she was actually pregnant with twins, would pull through. It's hard to imagine that this kind of thing still happens in America in the 21st century, yet here we are. But what has people really up in arms is the fact that Devon posted a bond of $5,000 and walked out of his Michigan jail cell just 2 days after the incident happened. He was released on bond with his only conditions being not returning to the scene of the crime or doing drugs. And according to the New York Post, he also has a long criminal record with all kinds of prior charges, from drugs to guns to assault. While the woman he almost burned to death is struggling to survive in the hospital, he's walking around the street as if nothing ever happened. Number 5. Trouble in Berlin. At 2:30 in the morning on Wednesday, April 2021, Berlin police contacted local cops in the city of Meriden to perform a welfare check on a woman living in the city. They made the request because they had just learned that a man named Colin McBriety had cut off his monitor bracelet. Colin was required to wear the monitoring device because of several violent incidents involving him and an unnamed female. This woman had been pestered by Colin so relentlessly that she had 6 protective orders taken out against him. And so, when they learned he cut off his bracelet, they were fairly certain the woman was in trouble. And they were correct. When Meriden officers arrived at her residence, they discovered a screen missing from one of the windows and heard a horrible crash from inside the home. They then saw a man stick his head out of an upstairs window. They tried to reason with the man to come outside, but he refused. At the same time this was happening, the woman in the house was on the phone with the police saying she feared for her life. Colin had broken into her home, but whatever he had planned was foiled by the police showing up. Realizing he was in major trouble, he barricaded himself in the laundry room and blocked the door with the dryer. It was pretty clear he had no way out, and so he did eventually let officers talk him out of the room. He was arrested and charged with home invasion and a whole heap of other crimes, as well as violation of his protection order. This time his bail was set at $250,000, and there was no way he could pay it. Number 4. 99 problems. Marco Parks is what you might call a habitual offender. He was sentenced by a Limestone County jury in December of 2021 to spend 99 years in a Texas prison. This was the result of bail jumping and failure to appear in court following a prior arrest in 2019. This original arrest came because he was caught operating a vehicle without a driver's license or insurance. He was also found with 9 grams of methamphetamine. He was supposed to stand trial for these crimes in June of 2021, but never showed up for court. He was charged with bail jumping and arrested 19 days later. Then, when he finally had his court date, the judge decided he was a habitual offender and gave him a prison sentence of no less than 25 years, but not more than 99 years. After a very brief deliberation, the jury decided to go with the full 99 years. The reason this is such an insane story is that all Marco did was try not to go to court, among his other minor crimes. There are people out there who murder other people and get less than half of what Marco got. He really should have shown up for court. Number 3. Bail bonds murder. Early 22 in El Cajon, a bounty hunter tracked a bail jumper to a vacant business. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the bail bond agents descended on the seemingly abandoned property. They believed the person who had skipped their bail was waiting there, but they ended up getting into a confrontation with a completely unassociated individual. It was sheer bad luck. This individual didn't know what was happening. He didn't like the look of the bail bond agents, and so he pulled out a gun and shot at them. One of the bounty hunters took a bullet straight to the face, while another agent shot the gunman with a taser to incapacitate him. Then they ran for their lives, dragging their wounded comrade with them. The bounty hunters called the cops established a perimeter around the building, and paramedics treated the man who'd been shot. Luckily for him, the bullet had gone through his cheek and exited out of his ear. It was pretty unlucky that he got shot, but almost miraculous that the bullet entered and exited without causing any major damage. The shooter came out of the building eventually and gave himself up. Then the San Diego bomb arson unit used a tactical robot to clear the rest of the building. It had been used by squatters, but there was no sign of the actual guy the bounty hunters had been tracking. Number 2. 3 arrests in 24 hours. Under normal situations, a police officer will use an arrest affidavit to state the circumstances surrounding the apprehension of a criminal. But in Denver of October of 2021, a police officer used an affidavit for something different. He used it to warn the court not to provide the defendant with the option of bail. The defendant in the case was Robert Avila, and he had been arrested 3 times in just 24 hours. And even though his charges weren't considered felonies for some asinine reason, officers did describe him as erratic, incoherent, and building up to something terrible. They understood his behavior was only getting worse, and that something really terrible could happen. His first arrest came on October 25th, around 10 p.m. Police were called because a resident at an apartment building said a man had kicked in his front door. Then the man had just kind of loitered in his apartment for no reason. Police arrested Avila and he was let out immediately on bond. 13 hours later, he did the same thing at the Marriott Hotel. He was arrested and released on bond. 9 hours after that, he broke into a woman's apartment and she locked herself in her bedroom in terror. When the police came to arrest him, he became violent and dragged a cop 30 feet, 9 meters down the hallway. Clearly, Robert Avila needs to be behind bars, and Denver Police Chief Paul Pazin agreed. He said that he and his department are seeing too many cases just like this one. Individuals are involved in multiple crimes and simply let go on the streets with no repercussions. And although nobody got hurt this time, it could have been a lot worse. Avila had his bond set at $10,000, an amount he couldn't pay. And so finally, he got stuck in jail. Number 1. Bail-jumping killer. Rosalie Cook was a grandmother of 6 and a well-respected member of the community. But on May 16, 2020, Rosalie became the victim of a tragically broken justice system. As she was walking to her car in the Walgreens parking lot near her home at just before 10 o'clock in the morning, she was assaulted. A man named Randy Lewis pushed the 80-year-old woman to the ground and then stabbed her to death. Police in the area arrived on scene momentarily. They shot Lewis dead in the parking lot when he charged at one of the officers with the very knife he used to murder Rosalie, a sweet old grandmother. That was the end of the case, but not the end for Rosalie's son. He has since gone national, trying to hold the criminal justice system accountable for what happened to his mother. The issue is that Randy Lewis had been arrested 67 times, and was out walking the streets on personal recognizance. This is when a criminal is let go on a free bond, assuming they'll take care of themselves and not commit any crimes. Rosalie was only one of 156 people killed in Texas's Harris County since 2018 who were out on multiple bonds. This means they were arrested several times and let go. And this is only in one Texas county. Thanks for watching. Would you rather be put in jail without bond for a crime you didn't commit, or get robbed of all your belongings by someone out on bail? Let us know your choice in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.